Hello, welcome to the Bernina 880 Mastery Live. This is our Lesson 7, Endless Embroidery, Shaping, and More with Susan Fears.
Thanks, Catherine. Welcome, everyone. This is going to wrap up our session on embroidery, and it is so exciting because our 880 does so many awesome things. So we have really covered a lot in our series, and today we're going to wrap it up with the endless embroidery. We're going to talk about how to make this work on screen and some tips about how to make this go on at the machine using your hoops. We're going to look at shaping. This is a very exciting feature that's been added to the 880, and it's a new fun thing to play with. We'll look a little bit more at color wheel, even though we touched on that in our last session, and then we're going to look at ArtLink, which is a tool that you'll want to have so that you can transfer designs from your computer to the machine. So we'll wrap up with that. But let's just talk about endless embroidery for just a few minutes. This is a way to take a design and to duplicate it out. And we've done this type of thing before, but we've had to do it manually. So the endless embroidery feature is an automatic feature that takes a design and whatever's on the screen gets duplicated out. And then it will put in placement marks or little reference marks, and you see them on my screen as these little arrows. That's what allows you to connect back up as you go from hoop to hoop to hoop to hoop. So in the table runner that you see on the screen, this is like about a 70-inch table runner. So there were a lot of pieces or a lot of rehoopings over and over and over to create this, but it worked just wonderfully. So it's something that the machine steps you through, so don't be afraid to try this. Your endless embroidery icon is the 3 butterflies that you see the arrow pointing to, and even though on my screen I'm showing you an embroidery motif, you can also do this with stitches. And so we're going to take a look at both using our simulator. So I'm back at on our machine, and I'm using our simulator, and I'm going to select a design, and we're just going to go ahead and create one with an embroidery design. I'm going to work with one of the designs from this folder, the Classic Collection. I'm going to select some of the florals and design number 4. To give me some room, you want to select, the hoop size that you're going to work with. So think about, how big is this project going to be, because you certainly want the longest hoop so that you can just minimize your hoopings. I mean, I think since the beginning of embroidery time, we've always thought about minimizing our hoopings, and that's still true. So we've selected the design, and I'm going to just, play around with it a little bit. So this will be a little bit of a review. I'm going to do a little rotation on this, just about, 44, 45 degrees. And then I'm going to still stay within my information window by using the eye breadcrumb, and I'm going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to mirror image it side to side. Remember, endless embroidery works on whatever's in the screen. So if you want something that has a different orientation than the one you brought in to start with, you might want to consider working that up first. So I'm just having 2 designs. This could be one design, but this is now one unit that's going to be endless embroidered. So our endless embroidery icon is the little butterfly. When you select that, it fills the hoop with how many of those motifs can comfortably fit in the hoop. Now you'll see there is some extra gap. You're going to need a little bit of extra gap because there will always be a portion of the design in the embroidery hoop because you've got to match it up. It needs to sew right next to the other one. So even though you could add another set, and when you do that, that actually takes you outside the hoop. So how would you get that back in the hoop? Well, there is a fit to hoop option. And this pretty much fills this area, which means when it comes time for you to re-hoop, it's going to be very, very tight. So I would consider going back to just the 2s that we had before and turn off fit to hoop. Because you could still use fit to hoop to fill the hoop. Maybe perhaps this is all you're doing. So you can do use fit to hoop with a lot of different ways. Because I do intend to stitch this out more than just the one hooping, I'm going to leave the reference marks turned on. But notice that there are 9 different reference marks here. Or I'm sorry, 8, not one in the center. So you can go sideways. You can set your reference marks to be wherever you need them to be. When you have the pattern that you like, you say yes or check to confirm, and this is what you would stitch out. So this is just one of my hoopings that I'm going to be doing for my design. Now when it comes time to stitch this out, you're going to select the X to close. We're going to go into our embroidery screen, and I'll want to put a hoop on just like the animation is telling me, and then now the module is going to move. Get ready. Now because I put this design together, I know that there's 4 of the same design, and I can go through this and do the gray, the green, the blue color, the other blue color, and another blue color, and we'll back to the gray, and I can do these one at a time. That's kind of tedious. Or I can select resequence, and we go from 22 colors down to 6. So it's going to stitch all the gray for all 4 of these at one time, all of the green, all of 5552, all of this light blue, and all of this turquoise. So you only be changing thread colors these 5 times. The last color are your endless markers, and you need to note that because they do not automatically stitch out. They are optional. You could decide not to stitch them out, but then you don't have a match-up point, so you do want to stitch them out if you're going to go from hoop to hoop to hoop. So they do not automatically stitch out with the last color. They're in red. You don't have to change thread colors. I don't. Whatever the last color I had on the machine is what I use to stitch the endless embroidery arrows out with. But you do want to do that. And then when it stitches to the end of the design, it's going to have some animations on the screen that are going to allow you to continue on with the process, and it steps you through each step you need to do. So, and I have some slides to show you that because it's a little interactive, but it's actually really quite cool. So let's go back to the edit screen. One thing that I need you to know is that when you do an endless embroidery, your designs are not grouped. So if you have to move something around, you're going to be moving, and it's a part of something else, then you know that you may be moving more than what you thought you would be moving. So a way to group everything together is to select everything, which is the bottom, and then you would select duplicate, and then move your duplicate over, and then you would individually delete these singles, which you can very easily do by swiping. Just swipe them away, and we'll get rid of those little registration marks. And now I need this back in the hoop, and what better way to get it back center than to use the move icon and center. And now I'm back in the hoop centered. So now I could stitch this out. So just some things to be aware of and to know about. I started us off with maybe, level B in embroidery. Let's take a look at just a very simple endless embroidery. Let's say at this little design here. Select the design, select the information icon, select endless embroidery, voila, you're finished. Now at this point, let's take a look at what we have. We've got our 4 motifs. We could add more. We could make it fit to hoop. We can clear by touching any of the highlighted boxes back to normal. Maybe you want to decrease what you have in the hoop and you want to increase the spacing between each of the designs. So, that's something else that you can do as well. You may decide you only need these 3, or maybe you only need these 4. I'm going to turn off the reference marks because I'm not stitching any more than just these. And I'm going to check to confirm. If you select the X, you will go back to just the single design that you selected. Now, as you look at this as an endless design, you're thinking, oh, well, that's kind of cool, but what else? Maybe I could make it look different. So if I select stitch number 2, or layer number 2, I can mirror image it, and now I'm going to select number 4 and mirror image it side to side, and now I can create kind of a garland that flows. So a lot of your designs, you can do this just on the fly like that, and that could be one of the advantages to the endless embroidery design not being grouped. So, just know that if you plan to do a lot of moving of things around on screen, you want to use duplicate to group everything together. If you're going to not be moving things around on the screen, you're just going to stitch it like it is, then you don't need to do the duplication. So that's going to be written in your handout for you with a note. So if that's not wrapping around your head right now, then I think once you see it written, it probably will. I mentioned that you could also do this with stitches. So let's take a look at how this might work working with stitches. So we'll go into our integrated stitch folder and we'll select one of our decorative design folders. And let's take a look at folder number 6. And I'm going to select pattern number 6, and I'm going to add, and I'm going to select the little star. Because I have the mega hoop on the machine, it defaulted to that. So I'm going to take the mega hoop off, and I'm going to go pick it as a hoop that is a little bit smaller, and actually the one that it would have used had it come in, had I not had the hoop on the machine. I'm going to select star, the little star stitch, and because I want this to stay in alignment, when they came onto the screen, they both came in the dead center. So I know I know if I just move it up and down one or to the side, I just need to move the knobs. So the knobs will allow me to fine-tune a move versus drag and drop, where I might run the risk of moving it to the side. So I'm just double checking that these look like they are connected without touching the screen. So then I'm going to move this back just a little bit, and now I have the two motifs centered vertically, but they're moved in an arrangement that I want them to be moved in. So let's take a look at using this as an endless embroidery. So I'm going to select the medium hoop, because you can also use your hoop sizes to dictate the size of your endless embroidery, because the endless embroidery fills the hoop vertically. So we're in our medium hoop. I'm going to select the endless embroidery from using our eye icon, and here is my pattern set. Let's check to confirm. And I'm not going to put any reference marks on at this time, because this is not what I'm going to stitch out. We're actually going to build something a little bit different. So the next thing I'd like to do, everything is selected. As you look at the retrieve layers on the side, you see everything is one piece. I'm going to use duplicate everything over, and now I'm going to move it over here. And then I'm going to go to these one by one, and I'm going to delete all of the singles. Because if I needed to move that row of stitches, I would have to move each one of those singles individually. And that would just be a lot of time to waste that I may not want to waste. Again, if I want to center this, I can move it into the center of the hoop. But what I really want to do is fill the hoop with this stitch pattern, because I'd like for this to become a background to an embroidery. Endless embroidery only fills vertically, so let's rotate this 90 degrees. Let's stay within the eye menu, select endless embroidery, and now I have my endless embroidery completely filled out. It looks a little crowded, so this might be a case where spacing things out will allow you to see a little bit better what each of the individual stitches are. Perhaps at this point you want to take some away. So when you're happy with what you have, check. And now you have each of these pieces. Now if you're thinking, oh, maybe I should flip-flop these a little bit. So you still have, and you'll notice each of these now exist as one single row. To avoid moving any of these because they are not a group, let's start selecting every other one and flipping them side to side. And now I can make this look a little bit more interesting. To get to the other ones, you'll use the up arrow. Okay, and when I see 6 and it's highlighted, I move this one side to side. And now, as I go back down to the bottom, where they're all selected, now I have a pattern set that's just a little bit more interesting. I was working in the medium hoop. This works equally as well for larger designs or larger stitches. And you can do this in the, I usually will use the large oval hoop if I want to do something in the jumbo hoop, because that gives me a good boundary to fill. So it's kind of fun just to work with some of those patterns like that. So if I wanted to add an embroidery, let's go back up to the add, where there's the add on screen. Select my breadcrumb with the folders, and then come find a design that might be attractive. And let's just pick maybe something small. Well, maybe that little rose would be pretty. Oh, this little flower. So, and what I see here is my background's really kind of too small for this flower. So that means I need to maybe start over and get a bigger background, or maybe I just want to resize my flower down a little bit so that it fits a little bit easier. But this is a beautiful backdrop for quilting blocks that you may be adding designs to. So these are just some of the tips about working with endless embroidery. So let's go back and take a look at our presentation, because I want to talk a little bit more about some other things. So this is endless embroidery with stitches. I was working with stitches that were the 9mm stitches. These are the stitches that are the sideways motion stitches. So you can work with a variety of different things in the menu. As you look at this image, you probably are noticing, oh, she did the exact same thing. See how they are flip-flopped? So they're not, all of the larger flower is not all in a row. It kind of zigzags down my page. This is what it would look like using that little design as a background for an embroidery. And I'm showing you that this was the background for an applique embroidery. So the embroidery pattern did not interfere with, or the background stitches did not interfere with my embroidery pattern, and all I did was put the same fabric that it was used as the ground for the stitches. That became the ground for my applique. So just something else that you can think of about a fun way to work. There are some online projects that have some endless embroidery techniques, such as what you just saw as the background for the embroidery. That's in a project called Bella Runner. So that's going to be, that could be just something that you can play with, but you'll also see some endless embroidery here. And it's another fun project for just working with stitches and combinations and embroidery designs and just putting them all together. Lingerie Luxury is a project that you'll also find on our website, and it takes you through doing endless embroidery and combinations, and all of the elements that you see in this project are built into your 880. So how do you find those? So you'll want to go to the Bernina.com website, and you'll want to select Experience. And then you'll want to select Sewing and Embroidery. When you select Experience, there'll be an overview that comes up on the side. And there's lots of great things to look for in this area. So Sewing and Embroidery is the one you're going to select. That will bring up a lot of sewing and basic embroidery projects. And then you can select the project. So you'll see thumbnails with just a title and a little bit of information about it, and you can scroll and see, and the thumbnails, they rotate. So every time you go here, they're more than likely to be a little different. So find the pattern that you're looking for, or read the little description to see what you want to look at. When you select it, it'll give you a little bit more information, as well as the ability to download the instructions on how to do it. So then you have the step-by-step project instructions, which they are developed to help you learn more about your machine. So those are there for you. So let's take a look at one other scenario that you may end up in, or if you do that one project, this is explained pretty easily. So this is an endless embroidery pattern that was done, and it combines an endless embroidery pattern from motifs, so an embroidery design, and a stitch. So how do you get them to be the same size? Because this is going to be what is the design that fills the hoop that you're going to continue to endless embroider. So in the lower left-hand corner of your embroidery screen, you have size settings. This tells you how big that element is. So if you only have this part of the design selected, and it says it's 128 millimeters tall, then when you select this design, it needs to be 128 millimeters tall. And maybe you're actually working in just a single design and just these two. But whatever is the smallest unit for your endless embroidery, that's what you want to get to be the same height. And then you can do the endless embroidery, and then as you go from hoop to hoop, then you're able to make things match up. So to get them the same size, you may use the resize icon and blow them up proportionally, or maybe you just need to increase the height a little bit. So those are all things that you can decide and to play with. So how does this happen at the machine? One of the things is you have a big long piece of fabric. You want your stabilizer to be the exact same size, because as you go from hoop to hoop to hoop, you don't want to have uneven layers in your hoop, which will cause you to have poor stabilization. And this is a project where the endless embroidery is going left to right. So this is using the other set of arrows. You'll want, I'm just starting with the template in the hoop, but when you embroider your first thing, you want to put the template back in the hoop, and you want to notice how many blank spaces you have, so that when I hoop, I want this stitch to sort of be in this open space. So I have at least 3 boxes, so when I re-hoop, I have these designs filling that empty space. So you always need to have some space left over when you do your endless embroidery, so that it can connect up and you never see where it starts and stops. So I'm connecting up with my little side arrows. It's back on the machine, and this is part of the screen that you will see as it steps you through what you need to do next. So it finishes, you say you're doing endless embroidery, you rehoop your project like I've just shown you. This screen is going to say, are you ready? Then you're going to check, and then you're going to line things up. So you can use the arrows. The needle should just move to where the arrows are, but you can also use absolute check to know exactly that things are going to line up. An absolute check is where we're tapping the screen and the needle moves to that position, and you can line it up precisely. So there's never any guesswork. You will always want to use your grid when you rehoop, because getting it straight is going to be important. You're going to want to have it straight in the hoop, or you'll end up with like a little crooked gap. You'll stitch your next part, okay, and this was where it was actually 3 hoopings going across to make the little bag, and I didn't take a picture of the embroidery by itself, but you can see that this is the end of the embroidery, and now it's time to actually make that little project. So again, just some tips about endless embroidery. Stabilizer length is the length of the fabric. Leave extra room in the hoop to rehoop. Remember, your endless embroidery patterns are not grouped, but that allows you to mirror image them if you need to. Use duplicate to group, and then delete that original. And then if you need assistance with hooping, the master hooper is awesome. It keeps the hoop from sliding around on the table, so you can be more accurate and hoop things quicker. So that's just a little tip. Another feature we want to talk about is shaping. Shaping works with embroidery designs as well as stitches. And when you're looking at your information screen, you will see an icon next to endless embroidery that looks like this, and that is your shaping icon. So let's take a look at how cool this works. So we are going to be working with shaping. So we're just going to close out of the information screen. We're going to go to our folders and get something new. use the breadcrumb tick back to the gold folders and we'll select the motifs. Remember, folder number 5 is the folder set aside or included with small motifs for shaping. And number 5 is kind of cute and fun to play with, but it doesn't give me much room in that tiny hoop, so let's work with the medium hoop. We'll select the information box and then we'll select our shaping icon. And what you have here are a variety of different shapes that you'll need to vertically scroll to see the rest of them. Remember, the little shaded area where it's partial indicates there is more. This is what allows you to add more units or more repeats onto your object. This sizes the shape. This shape that you get is dependent upon the hoop you have. So if you are in the jumbo hoop, your box is just bigger. It's not going to be this tiny box in the jumbo hoop. The hoop is the square will be larger. Right now, as I change the size, it's proportionally locked. So everything I do, both of these numbers are moving at the same pace. If I unlock it, I'm able to create a rectangle. So it can be tall or wide, or if I go to a circle, I can select an oval. So all of your shapes that you have can become different shapes because you have squares that become rectangles, circles that become ovals, regular stars that become tall stars. You also have triangles. You have a basic shape, but now you have more of like a tree shape. So whether it's locked or not will make a difference. To clear any of these, you can always touch the little box that has the yellow outline. Let's go back to our box for this little piece. And I'm going to put on here 4 units, and I'm going to resize this down so it fits into the hoop a little bit better. The plus 90 will plus 90 each of the individual motifs, and as you look at this, you can see how those shapes begin to turn into other really cool things. Also, your mirror image images every other one of the shapes, again giving you some other really wonderful motifs to play with. You don't like any of these, you select the X and you're back to being able to select something different. You do like it, you press the check mark, and this is what you can now stitch. So that was working with a shaped design in the shaping folder. But there's more. What if you wanted to shape something from perhaps the quilting menu? Like maybe this design, which is a wonderful little corner. I'm going to put this in the jumbo hoop to start with right away. Eyeballing it, I think that's probably still a little too big, so I'm going to just resize it down just a little bit. And this is just a guess, so we're just going to take it down to about 85. I'm also going to rotate this. When you take things into shaping, it brings them in at a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to put that 45-degree angle on right now. Now when I go into shaping and I start moving things around, I have a better chance of getting those corners in the corner area that I want. I'm going to change the size of this a little bit, and that is exactly what I wanted to have happen. So resizing it just a little bit, doing the rotation, changing the size of my overall box, but still working in the jumbo hoop because I want something that's going to fill this hoop. I'm going to select the checkbox, and now you've got a great quilt square base to put all kinds of beautiful designs in. You know, perhaps you have a collection which has lots of related motifs. You know, this could be your base for all of your blocks, and all you do is select Add, and let's go find a design and just put something wonderful into the center of the block, and there you go. And this is what it would look like all together. So this is how you can really begin to have some fun working with this shaping tool. Just a couple of other things just to let you know, it certainly works with stitches. So let's pick a stitch, and stitch number 20 is one of my favorites because it does some really cool things in a lot of the different shapes. So we're going to go into shaping, and you're just going to start adding a bunch of things. You see how these start marching around? Usually if I'm doing a four-sided object, I try to make my number of motifs divisible by 4. What if I plus 90 this? Okay, looking kind of cool. Divisible by 4, you have to remember your math. Ooh, now this is has a little bit more potential. I'm really liking this. What does it look like as a circle? Ooh, kind of cool. If I take a few away, then they space out. If I add some more, oh, remember the game, that little game called Spirograph? Start to get that type of effect. These are some of your other shapes. So you've got arcs, kind of a concave and a convex arc. You have hearts that make interesting shapes as well. So this is just where you get to play and have a lot of fun. If you don't like what you get, sometimes it's a matter of, well, do I need more motifs or do I need less? Or do I need to, plus 90 them? So you can really you can see how much fun this is. You've got a hexagon, and the spiral is really fun to play with. Again, so you can see how you could spend some time. If you have, if you go to work and you want to wish you could take your machine with you, take the simulator and load that on your PC and have some fun playing with the different shapes. So a lot of fun things that you can do with shaping in stitches. Now, I want to go back up to the square, and I'm going to resize the square a little bit, and I'm going to check. This is what I want to stitch out. When you bring things into embroidery here, they are grouped. These do not come apart. So unlike Endless Embroidery, where they were not grouped, these are. So what else could you do? Let's pick the jumbo hoop. Ooh, let's go back into shaping. And let's make something else really fun. So you can shape shaped things. So something to think and to play with. So have fun with shaping. It is truly as much fun as you are just seeing here. So back to our slides. Okay, stitches, embroidery designs, not just those in folder number 5. You can also do combinations. Shaped items are grouped. So when they come in, that's a unit. And if you are creating shaped elements and they overlap each other, they're going to sew out with double thread because it does not remove stitches in the overlapped areas. If that's something that is really important to you, then the Designer Plus software is what you need for that. Now there's a couple of things we want to talk about for the Colors tab. We did a little bit with the color wheel last time. But we're going to really look at what else goes on in the Colors tab. You can reassign colors in a design on screen. You can change thread libraries, which we looked at. And then you can recolor something using the color wheel. And that can be everything on the screen, or you can recolor motifs individually. So let's take a look at how that works. It does work with designs that have color, so black and white and gray things do not color wheel very well, although I could change all of the colors of this black using my Colors tab just by touching this little change tool and either scrolling until I found a color that I liked better, or if I had the color number in my hand, I could just type that in using the 0 to 9. And now I am ready to stitch this out, and I can see what it looks like in red. But let's look at a design with some color that we want to change. And so let's look at one of our flower designs. I'm going to give us a little bit more room because we're going to add another one of these. So we've got 2 things here that are in our hoop, and now I want to use the color wheel on these. So with our color wheel, this outside dial will change the colors of everything on the screen, and both of those elements were highlighted, or they're in color, so it's acting on both of them. This is what changes your lightness and brightness. If you only wanted to move the colors on one design, then you can use these arrows to select different designs, and now you can change the design back or change it to something different. This middle wheel that does not move is what the original color wheel looked like. So it's the original orientation of your colors. And perhaps you like this arrangement better. When you leave your color wheel the way it is and you go to your colors, it has remapped all of those colors into what you saw on screen to physical thread. If you don't have Isacord but you have a different library of thread, the way to change thread libraries is to select the change feature again, and this time you're just going to scroll through to the library of colors that you are looking for, and there's a huge variety. And then you just, you've done this, you go back to your palette. Oops, I'm sorry I didn't hit the little icon. There we go. Touch the little icon, and now they're all Robus and Anton colors. So you have another way to use the colors, and your color wheel can be changed into the same thread library or another one. Remember, not all thread libraries have a one-to-one relationship, and like Isacord has, maybe it has 300 spools, they have more. But if you're changing it to another thread library that only has 250, it's going to make the best match. So, but it's a wonderful tool to work with, and when you go to edit, now you have the colors that you'll be embroidering out. And again, if you were to go to the needle and attach your jumbo hoop, if there were any colors that were repeated, your resequence icon would show up, and you would be able to resequence. Okay, so we have done pretty much just about everything that's really cool on the machine in regards to shaping, endless embroidery, and the color wheel. Just a few things that we talked about earlier: the recolor slider, the change the brightness slider, the static inner wheel. One more piece of the puzzle. One of the tools that you have at your fingertips is ArtLink. And I say you have it at your fingertips because it's free. It's a download off of our website. So you're probably saying, okay, what is it and do I need it? Because I got to go download it. Yes, you want it. Whether you think you need it or not, you want it. It is a basic software program that allows you to open an embroidery design, make basic adjustments, and write the design directly to your embroidery machine. So it is free, and it is the bridge between taking designs from your computer and putting them on your machine. It also converts the designs, so it will read any file for any design of any file format and translate it into the file format that the 880 reads. If you have ART files, it translates ART files into the files that the 880 reads, and those are things that you really, really need. And if you're wondering, well, how would I ever have a design on my computer? Perhaps you've purchased a CD or a USB stick of one of the beautiful Bernina collections, and now you need to get it to your machine. Perhaps you have art files from before you had your 880 and you still want to stitch those out. Those are on your computer. That's what ArtLink helps you to do. So now you want it. How do you get it? So it is a free download. You'll go to the Bernina.com website. You'll select Products, Software, and Embroidery Software, and then you'll be able to select the ArtLink 7. It will download to your machine. You want to run it, and that will install it. It also comes with 40 designs. So even if you really don't know if you want ArtLink, you want those 40 designs. And then you can use ArtLink to send them to your machine. So what can it do? It can open designs, it can convert embroidery designs, and it can send them to your 880 with the proper format. It can also rotate, resize, or scale. It can do both mirror images. It can assign thread colors, and it can print a paper template. So if you want to know exactly how it's going to, how you could print the paper template and lay it on your article that you want to stitch it onto, and you can plan precise placement. You see exactly how big it is. You can, determine that the placement's correct and it's not going to be in an oops place. So all of those types of things ArtLink can help you with. What it can't do is it cannot design something from scratch. It cannot combine embroidery designs, which also means you can't add letters to an existing design. You can't digitize fonts or lettering, and it doesn't digitize any kind of pictures or logos. So, if that's where you are headed in your embroidery world, then you would want the Designer Plus software for those options. There is a free ebook download that you can also get from the website that is a printed little book about how to work with it, what it can do for you, and some frequently asked questions. And it's really enough to really help you. It's not a long book either. It's really short because ArtLink is not a complicated program at all. So this is the, these are the little topics that you'll find in there. All the things I was telling you that it could do. And now, this concludes our Mastery series about the 880, and I hope you feel like you are equipped to go out and sew and embroider the world that you want to create in. So thank you for staying with us, and enjoy your Bernina 880. Thank you.